Hey, Advanced Math A, here's our last lesson in our review unit for Math A. We've got evaluating. So here we go. Evaluating. So when it says to evaluate, you're going to replace variables with the values that they're equal to, and then just do the order of operations. Now, when you are evaluating, you want to make sure that anything that you're plugging in for those variables is plugged in with a parenthesis. Now, it doesn't always matter if you have a parenthesis or not, but in certain situations, it matters a lot. So it's just really good to get into the habit of always substituting in your values for the variables with the parentheses around them. All right, so here we go. So we're going to use x equals 6, y equals -5, and z equals -8 for each of these problems. So first step, I'm going to evaluate, and I'm going to use parentheses. So that means I'm going to write 3, parentheses, instead of x, I'm going to write in 6. So now I can tell that's multiplication. Plus, and then y is -5. Now I'm going to do the order of operations. My first operation here is multiplication. I'm going to do that before I do addition. So I've got 3 times 6 is 18. And then my last operation, I'm going to add a negative and a positive together. So this is actually a subtraction problem. 18 plus a -5, so that's 18 minus 5. That's going to leave us with 13. All right. Evaluating, that's it. We're going to plug it in with the parentheses, then use the order of operations. Next one, x, we're going to evaluate it for 6. I'm using parentheses. In this case, the parentheses don't make any difference. Having parentheses or not having parentheses in this case doesn't make a difference. I'm still going to do it just to get into the habit so I don't make mistakes later on. So y is -5. Now that does make a difference because now I can see it's a -5. And then z, -8. Makes a difference. If I wouldn't have had parentheses, it would have looked like a subtraction problem instead. So the parentheses do help. Now at this point, I've got 6 minus -5 minus 8. Now what I can do here is call this multiplication, -1 and -5. So I'm going to do that first. So this is 6. I can drop the parenthesis because it's not making a difference. -1 times -5 is 5, so plus 5. And then minus 8 in parentheses. It does make a difference because that indicates I am multiplying these two right here. So order of operation says we multiply before we add. So we've got 6. 5 times -8 is -40. And then last operation, 6 minus 40 is going to give us a negative number. We subtract the two numbers and then we keep the negative sign. We get -34. Next, we got 3z over x. So I'm going to plug in 3 and in parentheses, I'm going to plug in -8. Makes a difference. Now, watch what would happen if I didn't use the parentheses. If I didn't use the parentheses, it'd be 3 minus 8. And I'd be thinking, oh, I should be subtracting these two numbers. But since I put the parenthesis in there, now I can tell, oh, I'm supposed to be multiplying those numbers. So that parenthesis does make a difference. And then I'm going to plug in 6 on the bottom. Since it's just 6 by itself, the parenthesis really doesn't make a difference. But again, we're trying to develop some habits here to make our problem go better. So I'm going to do 3 times -8. That would be -24. Over 6. The parenthesis can go away at this point because I don't really need it. And then I've got -24 divided by positive 6. That's going to give me a -4 as my answer. All right, now that I've done those 3, if you want to work ahead a little bit, you can pause, work ahead, and then I'll catch you up on that. All right, so pause. All right, we're back here. Sorry, I had somebody knocking on my door. All right, so next one, x squared. So I'm going to plug in 6 and square it. Minus y squared, negative 5 squared. All right, order of operations says before we do any multiplication or anything, we're going to do exponents. So I'm going to do this exponent. I'm going to get 6 times 6, that's 36. And now I've got another exponent. This one, since there is parentheses there, it's negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25. So I got 36 minus positive 25. And then since there's a negative out here, this is actually 36 minus 25. And that's my last operation. 36 minus 25 is what, 11? Yep, 11. All right, we are moving now. Okay, so we're going to substitute everything. Instead of x, I'm going to plug in 6. Instead of y, I'm going to plug in negative 5. All right, first operation, I'm going to look inside in here, these parentheses. 6 plus negative 5, so that's 6 minus 5, that's going to be 1. So I got 2 minus 3, and all that stuff became 1. I've got subtraction and multiplication. Multiplication happens before subtraction. Remember to keep the negative with 3. So this is going to be negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Final answer, 2 minus 3 is negative 1. All right, let's evaluate by substituting here. So z is negative 8. Oops, wrong color. Negative 8. Y is negative 5. And then minus the x on the outside, and x is 6. All right, order of operations, parentheses first. So that leaves me with a negative 8 on the outside. I'm going to drop the parenthesis because it's not really doing anything right now. Negative 5 plus 10 is 5. I'm going to drop that parenthesis because it's not doing anything right now. Okay, now we've got multiplication and subtraction. So negative 8 and 5 makes negative 40. Minus 6. Two negative numbers. I add the numbers, keep the negative sign. So that's going to end up being negative 46. 3 more. xz minus yz. So for xz, I would do 6. Z is negative 8. Minus y is negative 5. Z is negative 8. Order of operations says multiplication from left to right at this point. So we're going to multiply there. We get negative 48. This negative is not part of this multiplication over there, so I'm going to leave it. And then I've got my next step is to multiply the negative 5 and the negative 8. That's going to give me positive 40. So I've got negative 48. The negative was not part of that multiplication there. So this is going to be negative 5 times negative 8. That's positive 40. So what am I left with? Negative 48 minus 40. We add the two negative numbers and keep the negative sign. We get negative 88. Almost there. X squared. So that is 6 squared. Keep picking up that pink pen and trying to write with it. The z is negative 8. And then minus 10. All right, I'm going to do exponents. I'm going to do the numerator first and then the denominator second. So the numerator gives me 36. Could you do more than one operation at a time? Sure, you could, but that's just a great way to make a mistake. So just better to do one operation at a time. That way you can focus on one thing at a time and not make errors. So I've got 36 in the numerator. In the denominator, I've got negative 8 minus 10. I add the numbers and keep the negative sign. I get negative 18. All right, 36 divided by a negative 18. It's going to be a negative number because we got a positive divided by a negative, and 18 goes into 36 twice. Final answer is negative 2. Last problem. All right, so x is 6. And then we've got 3 minus y is negative 5. Plus 2, and then z is negative 8. All right, so order of operations. Now in here, I've got negative negative 5. That's like saying negative 1 times negative 5. So I'm going to do that operation right there first. So this is, that parentheses not really doing anything, so I'm going to drop it. This is going to be negative 1 times negative 5. That's going to be positive 5. All right, parentheses still has an operation right there. So this is going to be 6 times 8. Multiplication from left to right, 48. Still more multiplication, 2 times 8. That's my next operation. I'm left with 48 minus 16. I subtract the two numbers. I keep the positive sign because the 48 is the bigger number there. And I end up with 32. Yep, 32. All right, we have made it through our introduction unit. And we will start again with unit 1, which is multi-step equations. It'll be fun. See you later. Bye-bye.